Hey everyone, for today I prepared a yoga flow. It's a very vinyasaisch flow with the focus on handstands and front splits, and it will take us about 50 minutes or so to finish it. But don't rush it. If you feel the need, just pause the video and play around with things or modify them by using props like blocks or the wall, for example. I really think that way you get the most out of it. So do it a little bit individually and don't hurry. Rather enjoy and have fun. And without further ado, let's get started. Let's start in a standing position and just take a moment. Take a moment to calm yourself, to calm your body and to calm your mind. Focus on breathing, in particular on exhaling deeply. And maybe you can even try to extend your exhales. And then let's try to relax more and more with every exhale. And then let's slowly prepare for some sun salutation. So inhale all the way up, exhale. We try to go all the way down as good as we can. No worries, don't force anything. Inhale halfway up and we bring the right leg back, knee to the mat, and then we center the upper body. Hands back to the mat and left leg back, and we go into chaturanga. Onto the mat, into a cobra. Back into a down dog. And then we lift the leg at first to work already towards the front splits, and we bring the right leg in between our hands, knee to the mat again, and we center the upper body again. Hands back to the mat, and we close the position by bringing the left leg in between our hands, all the way down again, and inhale all the way up. Then relax. Second round, we add another pose. We try to arch back, optional of course. Just do it if it feels right. And then we go all the way down. This time we will bring the opposite leg back. So left leg back, left knee to the mat. We center the upper body. Hands back to the mat, and we come back into chaturanga, all the way down onto the mat, laying flat on the mat and into a cobra. From there back again into down dog. And now we lift the left leg as high as we can. We try to keep the leg straight. And we bring the foot in between our hands. Right knee to the mat. We center the upper body again. And then we finish this round, closing the position, and we go all the way down and all the way up, plus arching back. If you like, it's optional. No need to overdo it. Just add a little back bend, a little stretch of the front side. Third round, same thing, we arch back, all the way up and arching back, all the way down, as good as we can. And this time again, we bring the right leg, right knee to the mat. Maybe we can already go a little bit deeper into this kneeling lunge position. Hands back to the mat, left leg back, chaturanga, cobra, I like to do it on the inhale and exhale, down dog. We lift the right leg again. Right foot in between our hands. Left knee to the mat. Center the upper body. And feel the stretch just for a moment before we close the position once again. By bringing the left leg forward and going all the way down. Then all the way up and we arch back. Nice. Fourth round. Now we will try to hold every position for 5 breaths. So all the way up, arch back and try to hold. No need to go too deep. Try to stay in touch with your breath. Breathe comfortably. And try to stay for about 5 breaths. Nice, then we go all the way down and we will hold it there in this forward fold position. And we bring the left leg back again after this forward fold. Left leg back, left knee onto the mat, we center, and also here we will hold it for 5 breaths. And maybe we can try to sink deeper into the position on every exhale. Maybe we can try to bring the thigh closer towards the mat. And then we come back into Chaturanga. And we will hold it here as well. And no worries if it's very hard. Try to stay, but support it with your knees. Lower your knees to the mat. And try to breathe. Try to focus. Focus on a single point. Good job. Okay, Cobra position. Try to arch back. Again, focus on a single point, try to breathe, try to release the tension out of tensious areas. Activate your pubic bone a little bit into the mat. Good. Back into down dog. And we lift the left leg only as high as it allows us to go, and so that we can still breathe very comfortably. And then we go for our 5 breaths here as well. That's our approach for the day. Good. Left foot in between the hands, right knee to the mat. We try to keep the hip parallel as good as we can. We try to activate the thigh towards the mat, but at the same time we try to relax, to release the tension out of it. And then we come forward again. We close the position with this forward fold, deep forward fold. Focus now on your tailbone. Think of lifting your buttocks as high as you can, so that you can sink deeper into this position. Then come all the way up, and if you can, arch back. Only so far that we can still breathe very comfortably. No need to push too much. Nice, and then let's take a moment before we go into the last round. Alright, last round, last arch. This time to give it some variety with open hands, hands apart. Before we did it in prayer, right? So this time, hands apart. And then all the way down. We will again hold every pose for 5 breaths. Right leg back, knee to the mat. Can try to create a line between our thighs. Then we come back into Chaturanga. And again, if it's hard, just support it with your knees, no worries. We will get there, we will get there. Just a matter of getting used to it, really. Okay, Cobra next. Now maybe we can also focus a little bit on arching the middle and upper back. Try to focus on the muscles besides your spine and your upper back, neck area. And try to push the spine through by activating them. So that we bend not only out of the lower back, but also of the rest of the back. Then down dog position. And this time we will hold it here for 5 breaths as well. Try to open my shoulders. And try to bring my heels into the mat. Then right leg up again. Trying to bring my crown closer to the mat. Trying to open the shoulders and to lift my leg higher. Then right foot in between the hands, knee to the mat. Again, trying to create a line between my thighs. And left leg forward, forward fold position. Nothing happened. And then we go all the way up. Plus arch with open hands. Still having a little distance between the hands. 5 breaths. Nice. Okay, then let's take a moment again. And then we will continue with stretching the sides a little bit. And I'm going to mirror you. So right ear towards the right shoulder. Supported by the right hand. Opposite shoulder is also activated towards the mat to increase the stretching sensation. And then you can either hold or improve the intensity even further by giving your chin a slight push with your left hand, as you can see. But be careful with this one. If it's too intense, just stick to the first variation and hold it for 10 breaths instead of just 5. Then other side, left ear towards the left shoulder, supported by the left hand. Right shoulder also activated towards the mat. And we try to stay in touch with the stretch throughout. Again, trying to improve the position, the intensity a little bit by pushing my chin up with my right hand. Good. Then we turn the left foot outside. We cross the fingers, we turn the hands out, and we bring the arms above the head, behind the ears if possible, and we lean towards the left. We lean towards the left and we activate our hip towards the right, into the opposite direction. And then we try to go a little bit deeper, even if it's just a millimeter, a little bit deeper with every exhale. Good. Then other side. Right foot outside, fingers crossed again, hands turned, arms above, leaning to the right, hip moves towards the left. And I really try to straighten everything out. I activate my elbows, I activate my hip, and I activate the complete side line, the line between the left hip, the left armpit, left shoulder, left elbow, left fingers. Next position, lower hands, onto our lower back, and then we just try to push our hip forward. We do it very gently, and if possible we can bring our head back as well. But also we should be able to breathe very comfortably. Next one, we try to make the butt of a duck, as we in Austria say, in German say. So we are not pushing the hip forward anymore. Instead we try to push the chest out. Hip tries to stay in place. We try to lift the tailbone even to create a nice hollow back between tailbone and shoulders. Hold it for 5 breaths. And then you can, if you like to improve the position, you can then bring the arms behind your ears again as well for another 5 breaths. So this time we focus more on the middle back, upper back, shoulder, neck area. At least we try to create an arch there. Then we go for a little shoulder stretch. Try to grab your hands behind your back. And if it's very hard, pause the video for a second and get a towel and try to move your hands closer and closer together, step by step. Take your time. Good. Then we will add a forward fold. For this, toes a little bit inside, heels a little bit outside. That's what I wanted to demonstrate. And then we fold forward while we try to continue with the shoulder stretch, while we try to keep the shoulder stretch up. So again, think of activating your buttocks, your tailbone. Try to lift your buttocks as high as you can. Try to straighten your knees. Good. Then we change the sides. And we just repeat. Every position for 5 breaths. And again, if it feels very intense, try to focus on the tension and try to release it by calming your breathing. I think that's what they mean when they say breathe into it. Just to release the tension. By focusing on the exhale in particular. At least I find the exhale very useful to focus on it. Always very useful to me to relax. Alright, then let's continue with a squat position. Toes a little bit outside, heels a little bit inside to make our legs stronger and stronger. 5 breaths here as well. I try to make my thighs as parallel with the floor as I can. And after 5 breaths, I just go for a deeper forward fold by grabbing my toes now. And I try to touch my shins with my forehead. Alright, then I bring the right leg back. And we go for a lunge position. A cool squat variation that complements the split game, the front split game very nicely. And also here try to create a line between your thighs and try to lower them to the mat as good as you can. Then we go back into Chaturanga and Cobra. Back into down dog. Then we lift the right leg. We bring it in between the hands and we go for the other side. Lunge position on the other side. Again, trying to keep the hips parallel, trying to lower the thighs, in particular the back thigh, to the mat, but trying to create a line. So it's the quadriceps of the back leg that tries to find the mat and the biceps of the front leg that tries to lower as well. Nice, then we close the position. We go all the way down. And before we go all the way up, we try to do a squat here with closed legs. And again, I try to make my thighs as parallel to the floor as I can. And I just hold it for 5 breaths before I go all the way up. Then I open my legs a little bit. And I go for another round. This time I cross my fingers and I turn the hands outside. Again, and I squat like this. 5 breaths. And then we will go for some standing splits. So we try to combine the leg lift that we did in the down dog with a forward fold. Still not forcing anything, Just trying to create some strength through active flexibility positions, active stretching. Change the sides, left leg up as high as we can and upper body as low as we can, and then we bring the left leg back and we enter another lunge position. Then we will try to enter the warrior 3. So we try to create a line between leg and upper body. And I brought my arms to the side. Had a little bit too less space to bring them to the front, but you can do this variation as well, of course. Okay, now I had to move it back because now we try to enter our first handstand. And what I try to do here is I try to shift the weight off my feet, off my legs, and onto my hands. So before I swing into it, I try to lean into my arms as much as I can so that I do not really have to swing that much. That of course is not that easy, so no worries, try to swing. And if you want to work on it and if you have the time, then just pause the video for a moment. Maybe go to a wall to support yourself mentally a little bit as well and try to play with it. Swing on both sides to get used to it, to get used to the movement, to the feeling, to the sensations. I tried to hold it for 10 breaths and then I lowered myself slowly into a lunge-like position and I just entered the warrior on the other side. So I brought the opposite leg down first and did the warrior on the other side, the warrior 3, 5 breaths. But again, if you want to practice the swing into the handstand a little bit more, then no worries, just pause the video, play with it. And if you continued already, then let's go back into a lunge position from warrior 3. From there down, we'll do a vinyasa, so chaturanga and cobra and down dog. Then we will go for the other side. So I try to lift my right leg this time as high as I can. And I did the same thing. I tried to shift the weight onto my hand so that I had to swing as little as possible. And 10 breaths, went for 10 breaths again. But really, take your time, play with it. Swing in front of the wall, swing on your mat without wall to get used to that as well, even if you cannot enter the pose. Just work it, practice it, play with it. I did multiple repetitions as well, so again the other side, trying to lean onto my hands as much as I can and entering the handstand, holding it again for 10 breaths. It really also depends on your preferred approach. You can try to do 10 times, just swinging in and out on each side. You can play with it very intuitively. just try to take some time to really do it. That's the only way we can progress. Alright, then let's take a little break. Let's lay flat on the mat, forehead onto our forearms, and let's just take a moment after this little handstand practice. Let's try to calm. Let's release the tension throughout our body to prepare for another splitting round. So now we will enter the splitting game again, and we'll try to make some progress there. So again we do a lunge position, but with knee on the mat, upper body in the center, as we did in the beginning in the sun salutations. But this time we will try to go for the splits. At first try to lift your lower leg and try to activate your wrist into your hand. So I push back with my leg. I hope you can see it. That allows me to sink deeper with my thigh. And if you can, after 5 breaths, try to bring your foot closer towards your upper body, eventually even underneath your rib cage. Still trying to lower the quadriceps of the back leg towards the mat, and still trying to create a line between the thighs, between the legs. Then just shifting the weight back and going for a forward fold, 5 breaths here. Flexing the foot actively, but also pulling a little bit, supporting the flex with the hand, with the right hand. Trying to bring the forehead down to the shin. Alright, then let's go for our first split variation. Try to stay on toes. And try to lower the thighs to the mat. Try to keep your hips square as possible. So both sides of the buttocks in one line, basically. Five breaths, 10 breaths here. And then we go for the casual splits with wrist on the mat. And I like this hand placement because it really helps me to keep my buttocks in one line, keep the hip in one line. So I try to push my front leg a little bit to the inside, as well as my back leg. I try to rotate them a little bit internally. Okay, last variation. You can do that as a modification overall as well. If the full split is very hard for you, try to do it with this banded front leg. That's a very cool modification and very useful if you struggle to enter the full splits. But also very nice as a preparation or afterwards if you have the splits already. Alright, then we just repeat the same thing on the other side. Lunge with knee on the mat. Kneeling lunge, upper body in the center. One line between the legs, between the thighs, better said. But trying to lower quadriceps and biceps. Bending the back leg again and activating, pushing with the wrist, with the foot into my hand, because that really allows me to sink deeper into the position. And also adjust the position if you feel the need to, like bring your back leg further back if you think that the knee goes too much to the front. I think it's good if you can keep it approximately in one line with your heel. At least this helps me a lot to stay in touch with the stretch, really. So have that in mind. Already in the second variation, foot underneath ribcage, and then we shift the weight back, we straighten the front leg, and we go for this forward fold, flexing the front foot, supporting the flex. We try to bring toes and crown of the head together, and we stabilize the position with the right hand. Then we go for the first split variation here too. So try to straighten your back leg. Try to lower your legs fully to the mat, biceps, quadriceps. But try to stay on toes in this first variation. Then second variation, wrist to the mat. This particular hand placement, you can point the foot. I usually like to do both, flexing and pointing. So in the first variation, with toes on the mat, I flexed, and now with wrist on the mat, I point my foot. Trying to keep the buttocks in one line. Nice, okay, then we go for the last modification. We bend the front leg, but again, if the split feels too hard or just not accessible yet, you can stick to this one throughout. It will help you to develop the full splits for sure. And throughout these variations, try to keep your upper body in the center as good as you can. Alright, then let's get into a kneeling position, little break. I like to sit in between my heels, only the toes are touching. Little break, and then we go for one more handstand exercise. This time we will try to kind of jump into it, but we try to keep the jump as little as possible by doing it, by approaching it the same way as we did before. But this time we try to lean onto our hands with both feet, with both toes on the mat, no leg up. We try to get into it the tucked way. And again, if it's hard to shift the weight onto your hands, you might have to jump a little bit more in the beginning. Pause the video, take your time, go to the wall, practice a couple of times, and come back to continue the session when you're ready, when you're done with it. Then I try to come back, and again doing a kneeling position to relax a moment. After this 10 breath hold, really trying to calm myself in these breaks, trying to reduce the stress level by focusing on my breath. And when I'm ready, after about 5 breaths, 10 breaths break, depending on how much I need, I go for another round. But this time I tried from a kneeling position. I hope you could see it. I didn't do it from a squat position, but from a kneeling position. Same approach though. Tried to shift the weight onto my hands as much as I can, and tried to jump as little as I can. Really try it a couple of times. And if it's too hard, just regress back and do it from this squat leg, this squat on toes position. But I'm sure you will figure it out from a kneeling position as well. It's very similar, so don't get uncomfortable too quickly. It's not that big difference, to be honest. Alright, after this little break we go for aftercare. So again, the shoulder stretch we did in the beginning. Or not in the beginning, but that we already did. This time on a kneeling position. Again, just use a towel if it's hard to grab your hands. This time we hold it for 10 breaths to really open the shoulders again after this handstands, this heavy handstands. Other side. 10 breaths here as well. And then we are almost done. Just a few minutes more, a few minutes left of aftercare. Alright, then get yourself some blocks or something similar to make the next position slightly more accessible and a little bit more comfortable. You can do it without any blocks as well, but I think it's, just slightly more comfortable to do it on blocks. And now we go for a special shoulder treat. We try to bring the backside of the hand underneath our rib cage, and then we tuck it in between our legs, in between our knees, just one side to begin with. As you can see, I grab the shoulder with the other hand, or the knee. Knee is better. And then I moved my knees together, and then you should immediately feel it in your shoulder. And to release the tension on your throat, you can lift your head just for a moment. That should create enough space so that there is not so much pressure on the throat anymore. And then just hold it 5 to 10 breaths, depending on how you feel and how much you need. And then we will repeat the same stretch on the other side. I did it for 5 breaths. Couldn't remember exactly, but I did it for 5. And then I did the other side. And last but not least, I tried to do both sides at the same time. So we will have a look at that as well. Alright, then try to bring both back sides of your hands underneath your ribcage, both elbows in between your knees, and then carefully try to push your knees together. And if you can even try to touch your elbows with one another, and that should create a nice stretching sensation. And should also release a lot of pressure, a lot of tension within your shoulders after the hand balancing, the handstanding. I'm a big fan of this particular stretch. I do it almost every day. All right. Almost done. Last round. Last round, we will do a puppy pose. Try to keep your hip approximately in one line with your knees. And yeah, just relax into it. If you can, try to focus on the activation of your muscles again, the muscles besides the spine in your upper back. From middle back to upper back, really. Also on the neck, besides your spine. And then by activating these muscles, try to push yourself, try to push your chest through. Try to lower it towards the mat as good as you can. Did it for 10 breaths to give the body some time to get used to this. And then I tried to improve the position by straightening my legs. Hope you could see it. I just brought my toes to the mat at first, and then I straightened my knees. But you can do the casual puppy pose as well for a bit longer. No need to straighten your legs if it feels too intense. But if you can, of course, try it out. I think it's a great variation and I really love it a lot. Alright. Good job. Then let's get back onto our knees. Let's take a moment. Let's relax. Let's breathe a few times deeply and focus. Let's focus on the exhales. Let's try to extend them. And eventually, when we have reduced the stress level, release the tension, then maybe we can calm our breaths more and more. And maybe we can try to extend our exhales more and more too. Focus on a single point and try to relax on the exhale. Let's become calmer and calmer. Alright, that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks a lot for joining. And hope to see you soon again. Also be proud of yourself. I know it was a long session. So good job everybody, good job.